What's up YouTube? This is going to be your guide on how to use Zoroark in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. I'll be providing competitive movesets and some fun me movesets too. If there's a Pokemon you'd like to see me cover, put it below in the comment section of the video. And if you enjoyed this, if it helped you out, drop a like and let's get into it. So Zoroark is a really cool Pokemon that has a really interesting ability. Now, unlike Zoroark Hisuian, this isn't quite as good in terms of its typing. So being a dark type, it's much inferior to being a ghost and normal type. With a ghost and normal type, it gives it a lot more room and play with the illusion ability. Whereas with a dark type Pokemon, really you can only play with psychic type moves and keeping its illusion ability up. Now, obviously, team previews completely destroy a lot of Zoroark, but you can still have some surprise to try and get it to work. I have done a guide on Zoroark Hisuian already, so if you want to check it out, make sure you do. All right, first set here we're going to look is going to be a nasty plot or choice spec set. Now, Zoroark is very versatile. It can run physical and special, which is pretty cool, and it's got a reasonable speed stat too. So first one we're going to do is a special set. So I've got on here Nasty Pop, which is a great way of increasing its special attack. Now, it's got Dark Pulse as a dark type move. Now, it does have its signature move, which is Night Daze. Now, when you compare Night Daze, we've got 85 base power and 95% accuracy. And with this, Dark Pulse only has 5 less, 100% accuracy, and it doesn't reveal what Pokemon you are, basically. Like, there's only, I think there's only, what, one other Pokemon that gets that, Night Daze, like, was it Lunala? Or there's a very few amount of Pokemon that actually can get that. So, it's pretty obvious on your team if you've brought a Zoroark and you're using Night Daze, right? So, you want to make it less obvious, right, if you can. Next we got here is Flamethrower. Flamethrower is very good for coverage for Steel-type Pokemon and such like that. And of course, Sludge Bomb too. Sludge Bomb is very, very good for Fairy-type Pokemon, and it gives you like really, really nice coverage. So there are a couple of items that you can run on a special attacking Zoroark. And first one I like on there is Heavy Duty Boots, because you don't take any entry hazard damage, which can be good at keeping the illusion up. Say with another Pokemon, you're trying to copy it, and then suddenly you've taken some, say, Stealth Rock damage, and then, oh, well, they know what sort of Pokemon it is, right? With Zoroark, it's tricky to play because you have to try and keep that illusion going for as long as possible. Even if you can fool the opponent like once or twice, that can sort of change the battle around, right? Another item, a couple of items that can be good. Life Orb's good on there. That's a good item, Life Orb. Another one is Expert Belt as well. You do have quite a decent coverage of moves there, so Expert Belt, can be definitely a good choice. Another one, Focus Sash can work too, because, looking at its stats, it's not very bulky at all. 60 all round on health, defense, and special defense. So a lot of moves are going to hit it really hard, and probably one shot it. Now, anyway, regardless what item you use, with the Terrors, it can run quite a few different Terrors. I like running Terra Ghosts on there because if they do know you're a Zoroark, which a lot of time it's gonna get revealed eventually, right? Unless you get very, very lucky, or you're able to really, really work around the opponent's team because your team kind of suits. You have a lot of swapping and have against the opponent and stuff. So I've gone Terra Ghost in this because any fighting moves aimed at it, that's great. Which means you can always disguise something that's weak to fighting too. So say you've got a normal type Pokemon, right? Any normal type Pokemon, you could go Terra. You could say you could sort of disguise yourself as that, right? Doesn't with Terra? Let me explain Terra as well. So with Terra, it won't take on the Terra that your disguised Pokemon is. It'll still use its own, right? But you can make it out to be that still. So having Ghost on a normal type Pokemon is pretty, it's pretty normal, right? Because you're trying to get around any like fighting type moves. So that's definitely a good one to do. Plus you get around not revealing your illusion. So you could do that. Another one is Fairy. This is more probably a defensive one. Any fighting type moves coming your way, you could do that. Another good one is Terra Poison too. So if you come across any Fairy type Pokemon, you can go Terra type Poison and Sludge Bomb. But this is more for if you if you get reveal, like your illusion is gone. So with illusion, basically you take the appearance of the last Pokemon in your party, and when it takes direct damage, the illusion goes, right? But you can always swap the Zoroark out then and try and disguise it as another Pokemon. But once the illusion is blown and you've taken X amount of damage, it becomes pretty obvious what the Zoroark actually is. I will also provide some good teammates to use with Zoroark too, but it is a lot harder than his Wayne Zoroark, which has like way more stuff you can work around. So that's how I would go about running that. Specs is another good one too. Let's say we've done a nasty plot set. Let's have a look at a choice specs one. So we'll put choice specs on here. Similar sort of thing. You don't really have to swap the moves around too much. For nasty plot, I quite like having Trick on there, because Trick is good for swapping to something that can be threatening or a support or stalling Pokemon, so you can easily shut them down, and then you're free to use your other moves too. Dark Pulse can still flinch. You still got like really, really good coverage there as well. So that's definitely a good one that you can actually have there. Another one that you could possibly have on here, if you don't want Flamethrower, is Focus Blast, because Focus Blast is very, very powerful, very, very powerful, and that can hit your Steel-type Pokemon, right? So that's an option. Sludge Bomb's really good for Fairy-type Pokemon, so I would be definitely inclined to leave that on there. So that's probably that's probably the set that I would run on a Choice Work one. It gives you the best coverage. Some other ones you could have, if you're running Focus Blast, you could pop on Terra Fighting as well. So that could give you some extra damage on Focus Blast with specs, which is going to do a lot of damage. The only thing is there, you kind of got that accuracy thing. If you don't want to run Trick, you can go U-Turn as well. That just gives you momentum. It's not really going to do any damage, and you can adjust it to like... It's not a bulky Pokemon anyway, so it wouldn't even matter if you did Naive Nature. That way, U-Turn is going to hit a little bit harder, say for a super effective attack and stuff like that. So that's what I would do for a Nasty Plot or Choice Specs set. Next set we got here is a physical set. So this can run quite a few moves. Personally, I think it's a better special attacker than physical attacker, but it does have some niche as a physical attacker too in terms of priority. So sort of EVs we got here, Max Attack and Max Speed Jolly. It's always good to run Timid or Jolly on Zoroark. It loves its speed, so it can go first. So this one is Sword Dance knockoff, so you can either use knockoff. You've got some other options there as well, like some other gimmicky ones. But the main ones you want to use are either the knockoff or Sucker Punch. So you got Sucker Punch or knockoff. So you've got that. So that's possibly good there. I mean, Sucker Punch is only really good for stuff that's going to be faster, which there can be. It's sort of... Having your main stab locked behind Sucker Punch can be a bit risky, though. So if you want to go for something a bit safer, you know it's always going to land, and you're not going to get worked around, yeah, knockoff's good. You've got a couple of options here. So for Steel-type Pokemon, you could have Brick Break. That also gets rid of any screens or anything like that, which, that can be good. It can be a good option. Or you can even opt for something like Low Kick. Low Kick is weight dependent as well. So it's going to be... if something's really heavy, it's going to be great. If it's really light, well, it's not going to be so good there. So that's more dependent on what you want, depending on what you're playing. And the other move I put in there is Aerial Ace. So Aerial Ace is good for fighting type Pokemon. And I thought that could be good for Terra Flying as well. So that would give you a chance to live a fighting move and then hit the opponent with, say you've got a Sword Dance up already, you can go for Terra Flying Aerial Ace. Aerial Ace won't miss either. It is a little bit weak, so you could go Terra Blast as well for a little bit more damage. But if you like that 100%, actually, that's always fine as well. So that's some options there. Item, I gave it Black Glasses for knockoff. You could give it Lumberry if you were scared of it being status, which would cripple the Zoroark. And Boots as well, we've already talked about. Like, Heavy Duty Boots is good. Heavy Duty Boots is better in singles, though. So, yeah, if you're running this in doubles, like a Sash is another good one, too. So there's some options, to run the Zoroark. Now, looking at some more doubles or VGC style play here, if you were to use this, the sets are kind of similar. There are some similar sets to what I've already said already. You can implement them into doubles, but I wanted to do a couple of sets that were a little bit different, so maybe try something else. So you got to be pretty ambitious to use Zoroark in double. So this is a physical set here. We got Jolly Nature with Sash. I like Sash on Zoroark for doubles. It's harder to, in my opinion, it's a little bit harder to disguise it. So you've got Protect, which is going to be very useful. Low Kick for any Steel-type Pokemon or heavy Pokemon. U-Turn to give your Zoroark momentum, your team momentum, plus to try and use the Illusion ability. And I like Throat Chop on this because in case there's anything like Sylveon or Hyper Voice Pokemon, any Bug Buzz, all those sort of moves that absolutely destroy Zoroark, I think it's pretty good. And you do see them a fair bit, so it can be somewhat useful, any sound-based moves. You could easily give it knockoff as well if you think that's too niche, but that's another option that you can go for there. If the opponent doesn't have an item, Throat Chop's going to be a lot more powerful, whereas knockoff is, it's dependent on whether the opponent actually has an item or hasn't consumed it or whatever like that. So that's one way of running Zoroark. I gave that Terra-type Fighting as well for low kick. You could give it Terra-type Dark if you wanted. I probably wouldn't go for Terra-type Bug. Maybe as maybe for like fighting, but it's gonna be kind of crap. Like there's gonna be like way better things to do Terra Bug on, and Terra Bug isn't really all that good anyway. So yeah, that's probably what I would run for a little bit of a different double set. Another one I got here. This one's kind of fun, but it could work. So it's a special one. So I tried to do a physical one and a special one. So max special attack and max speed, timid nature. Sash on this one as well. And we're looking at Protect, and it does get Copycat as well, which I thought's kind of interesting. So you got Protect and Copycat. So you can use Protect to get around any stuff like Fake Out and stuff like that, which is going to be good for Illusion. And you can always Copycat a stat because, it's a good special attacker, and, it has... If you run special attack or you run physical, it's got a good chance of using that move. Might be good, Someone might use like Close Combat or Rock Slide or something like that, and you can copy that. But you've got Dark Pulse and Focus Blast as the other two. That's probably its best two moves in terms of coverage. And I gave it Stellar as well, so you could go for Stellar in case you were to try and get a Copycat. At least that would be like somewhat beneficial there. And then you've got these other ones too. So yeah, a little bit of a fun Zoroark set. They're a little bit different than the first ones, but by all means, you could definitely run these choice specs. Choice Scarf is another one you can run as well. Sword Dance, like you can definitely run these ones I was talking about in doubles. So there's nothing wrong with that. But I just wanted to give you something a bit different than what's probably suggested by people all the time. So you could give these ones a little bit of a go. You might find they might be able to carve a little bit of a niche into your team. Now I've got two gimmicky sets here, and then I'm going to explain probably the best ways to use Zoroark on a team. So some teammates, and it's not very hard to counter. Let's be real about that. All right, so the next set here, I'm sort of like, this is very, very gimmicky. So we've got two PIMPNITE specials here today. So this one is a Hone Claws set, so it does get Hone Claws. I was like, how can I make Hone Claws beneficial on Zoroark? Like, what could I possibly do that Sword Dance wouldn't do? It's like accuracy, right? So I noticed I got Fury Swipes as well. So I've got Loaded Dice and Fury Swipes. So we've got at least 4 hits on Fury Swipes, possibly maybe 5. And Sucker Punch for stab. And then we got Substitute as well. So maybe get the sub up, keep your illusion safe, and then you could go for Hone Claws behind the sub. Now, I've got Terra Normal on this, of course, which isn't all that bad for Zoroark. And then we've got Max Attack and Max Speed Jolly Nature. So a very, very gimmicky set, but lots of fun. You might be able to, get a sub up if you partner it with the right Pokemon. Maybe, for example, I like to... partner this with Psychic Pokemon. That can, definitely work there. Even on some of these ones, if you want to put, like, sub on some of them. I'm not saying choice specs, but you can definitely use Substitute to your advantage, too, or for causing a swap. It's always pretty good. Next sort of gimmicky set we got here is this one here. This is Pure Assault. So, obviously, you don't really use Night Days on Zoroark at all, but I thought I want to use Night Days. So, we've got 95% accuracy, which most of the time you're going to hit, and 85 power, right? So, this is all based on dropping the opponent's accuracy by 1 stage. It actually has a pretty good chance with 40%. I've given it a bag of Salt as well, Bright Powder. So we got that going for us. And we've got Extra Sentry for flinching. And Terra Psychic as well for getting around any fighting type Pokemon, Nasty Plot and Substitute. So this sort of sets up Nasty Plots behind the sub and flinches and, gets accuracy drops as well. So allowing you to try and, get like a sweep with it. Obviously a very, very gimmicky set, but, a bit of fun. You might cause a salty rage quit. You can put the EVs wherever on that one, defense or special defense. But yeah, that's some of the sets I came up with Zoroark. Let's talk about some partners that could possibly work with it. Okay, now let's talk about the best types you can use with the Zoroark for your team, right? The two best types to run are fighting types. So you got fighting type Pokemon, say anything with a fighting type is going to be useful, right? So say for example, you've got, so anything that's fighting, even let's say Great Tusk for example. So what you do, right, is you got the Great Tusk here, right? And you've got the Zoroark. So you have the Zoroark disguised as a Great Tusk, for example. And you're using that and stuff like that. And if it's against a Psychic type, right, someone's going to be inclined to go for Psychic. And when they do, obviously it's not going to affect it because it's going to be a Dark type. So that gives you a chance to set up a Nasty Plot, Sword Dance, do some damage, do something, right, a free turn. So that's like a good way of like pairing it with a Poison type Pokemon. Is another one too. So fighting or poison, they're the two best ones. So fighting because fighting is weak to Psychic, right? And that's going to draw out a Psychic type move. And the best one is as well as poison too. And poison is pretty good in terms of like like your team as well. So we could do like what's like something that's like drastically. I'm trying to think of something that would be anyway. Say like Glimmer or something like that, right? So, Psychic type moves coming and you've got a Zoroark there as well. So that's not all that bad at all, to actually, even use. So any like fighting or Psychic type Pokemon are going to be the go there to use with Zoroark. Like in terms of disguising them, and there's a heap, right? There's a heap. Let me try and suggest some ones. You got like Slowking Gala, that's not too bad. That's still Psychic type though, so it may not work. It may not work quite as well. It could be. I'd say it'd be one. You probably want to keep like ones that are actual like weak to Psychic would definitely be good there. Oh, that's a good one. So Gengar's a good one because Gengar, like these two work pretty well. So Gengar's obviously weak to Psychic. Zoroark is weak to fighting, right? So you could definitely get some synergy going with these two Pokemon here. For sure. That would be kind of nice. Let's have a look at some Ghosts as well. Like Ghosts are always good. That's why I suggested Terra Ghost on that, by the way, too. So I think I was having a look here for some other types. So we got Petrant. That's good as well, like Ghost and Poison. I was thinking, like, is there any others in Gengar? But yeah, we have Petrant, the new Pokemon. That could be decent in terms of, disguising and coverage as well. So there are definitely some Pokemon that could work well with it. Some other ones, too, that you could possibly use, like, I think it's Skeleturge could be a good one, too. That could work nicely. You could disguise that as Skeleturge. Another way to use Zoroark, too, is you may not have the correct Pokemon in terms of coverage, like a Psychic and a Fighting, but you can copy the moves that Zoroark learns. So this is another fun way to do it. Is it as good? Possibly. This Pokemon's all about mind games. So you've got Dark Pulse, right? You've got Sludge Bomb. This is a pretty rare combo, so there won't be a lot of Pokemon like, something, and it had to probably be a special attacker too. So I think, I actually think, does Houndoom? I think that Houndoom might actually get that. I know Houndoom isn't what you call the most greatest Pokemon in the world, but I'm just doing an example here, right? So for an example, Houndoom knows Sludge Bomb and Dark Pulse, right? So you could potentially disguise it as a Pokemon that learns those moves, right? So you could have it as, like, say it learns Knockoff, for example. You could disguise it as a Pokemon that knows Knockoff, that's prominent at using Knockoff, right? So there's a ton of different ways of using it like that. The only thing is the special side is probably the best way to use it because it has a lot more coverage on there in terms of moves, whereas it's a little bit limited on the physical side. So if you're trying to do this, I would use like, Dark Pulse and Flamethrower. That's a good combination because a lot of Pokemon actually use that. on the special attacking side. So, Chandelure, that's a good one. It's a ghost type Pokemon. Depending on what rule set you're playing too. Like, you've got other ones like Mewtwo and Chi-Yu and things like that. Heatran. That's a very... Okay, this is a good one as well. I know it's still weak. I know that it's still weak, but you got Hydreigon too. So, Hydreigon could... I think that also learns... Pretty sure that learn... No, it doesn't. I swear that used to learn Sludge Bomb. Correct me if I'm wrong there, but I swear that used to use Sludge Bomb. Anyway, maybe I'm thinking of Belch. But anyway, that's sort of what you want to do there, right? You want to kind of use that. So I've given some good examples there. To get around Zoroark, it's not very hard. Just reveal it. I know. Basically, you just got to do damage to it, and once it's revealed, it's pretty obvious. Keep a note of what health it has. If it's got any status, if it's lost any health or anything like that. If there's a Pokemon on their team that's got similar moves to it, that can give it away too, especially earlier on. They might try and use it earlier on. And another good thing people try with Zoroark is U-turn, because a lot of people use U-turn on their Pokemon, right? It's a common move, it's good. And they can just U-turn straight away and copy that, So that's another way of doing it. That U-turn's probably a really good move for Zoroark too, especially if you're running a physical, like U-turn or knockoff. If I was going to disguise a Pokemon of like a physical Zoroark, I would definitely use these two moves here. And then you've got stuff like Sucker Punch as well. So yeah, you can kind of work around that. For example, you could even disguise. It doesn't even matter. For example, it doesn't always matter if they don't have perfect synergy. For example, if someone used a fire move, you were disguised as a Scissor, right? But you're a Zoroark, and then you use like a fire move on you, and generally that would one-shot a Scissor. But Scissor learns Sword Dance, Knock Off, U-turn. You know what I'm saying? Like that, Zoroark would live that and be able to get its attack off, whereas a Scissor wouldn't. So that's another sort of example there at disguising. But I could talk about that all day because it is an interesting topic. But Zoroark is purely mind games. These are very mind games Pokemon. It's all how you use them and stuff, and how you disguise it and how you play it. Because if you get rid of its illusion too earlier on, it's very obvious what it is, especially if it's taken any damage on health, right? But yeah, I've given some great examples there, what types use, how to use illusion ability. Let's have a look now. I don't know why I gave it an Agwet Berry. Let's have a look now at the moves it gets and some last minute thoughts. So it does get agility, doesn't probably need that. It does get Calm Mind, which is outclassed by Nasty Plot, and it's not bulky. Encore. It does get Memento as well. That could somewhat be a throwaway move, useful throwaway move. Maybe if your illusion is busted and you can't do a lot. Gets Trick, Sword Dance, we're sort of going over that. Copycat, we had a little bit of look, helping. It doesn't really get anything, it can't be bulky at all. It's not a bulky Pokemon. The only bulk it has is pseudo bulk with its illusion, and once that's gone, it's pretty much cooked. That's the status moves there. We've pretty much gone over everything. Let's have a look at its special moves. As you can see, tons of different type of moves to use. We got Dark Pulse, Extra Sentries. I already sort of mentioned that. It's hard to fit Extra Sentry on. It's okay for fighting, but there's normally better moves to use there. It's got a lot of moves here. It does have Grass Knot too. That's kind of niche. It does get Hex too. Maybe you've got some strategy like Terra Ghost Hex, and you've got a Pokemon that puts down Toxic Spikes or something like that. It does have Hyper Voice. So you might be able to run a Hyper Voice Throat Spray set with Nasty Plot. Try and get like a 3 special attack boost. You obviously want your Hyper Voice to definitely faint the Pokemon, as it's not going to live. It does get Psychic for fighting types as well, which is better than Extra Sensory. But once again, it's fitting it on there. Sludge Bomb is very, very good for Fairy type Pokemon. Fairy type Pokemon are everywhere. And you've got sort of Night Days. Burning Jealousy is interesting, but it's probably it's going to get outclassed by Flamethrower all the time. Lastly, it's physical moves here. It does get some good physical moves too, but once again, it's a little bit limited. You've got like a dark type move, so Crunch, Knock Off, Sucker Punch, and then you've got a fighting move. You either want Brick Break or Low Kick for a steel type, and then you've got like U-turn. So you could run a choice band on this as well. You could even do like something gimmicky like Counter and Focus Sash. That could work because it's not very, it's not exactly what you call tanky, but Yeah, that's about it. That's pretty much it with Zoroark. To sum Zoroark up, especially normal Zoroark, it is a difficult Pokemon to play with effectively. It can be good, though, if you've got the right teammates to disguise it and you use it. It's one of these Pokemon that's all about using it correctly, but definitely outclassed by Zoroark Hisuian, because that is normal and ghost, right? So they can work its way around a lot of things, but still a really cool Pokemon, and I like to cover all the Pokemon. Yeah, that's pretty much it. If you enjoyed this, people, make sure you drop a like. If you got a Zoroark set that works for you, put it below. I'd like to hear people's thoughts and stuff like that. And I think we got another guide a little bit later on, and I'll catch you next time. Peace out.